And good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in for today's Day 2 webinar presentation. It is a continuation of yesterday's presentation looking at the owner's accounting HOA procedures inside RoomKey. Today we'll be looking at the HOA monthly procedures in that HOA portal. So an overview of our presentation today, we'll start with some introductions as always, then we'll actually jump right into the how-to and operational procedures inside that HOA portal. It is a continuation of yesterday's webinar presentation, so if you haven't had an opportunity to see yesterday's presentation yet, it is available on our support website, but we'll jump right into how to import and manage revenue for today's presentation. We'll look at how to post expenses and payments. We've got a lot of customization and flexibility there, so we'll take a deep dive into those tasks. Then we'll look at how to calculate statements with reoccurring fees, management fees, and the like. We'll also talk a little bit about how to sell a unit. So if that ever happens, if those units are being sold between owners or a brand new owner. We'll talk about when you can start using these tools, and then we'll wrap it all up with a summary and a Q&A. So our introductions for today, my name is Tasha Leclerc. I'm a trainer and implementation specialist with RoomKeyPMS. Joining me today, I do have our Director of Customer Experience, Mr. William Tam. I'll be leading today's presentation and the demonstrations on screen, and William will oversee the chat and Q&A feature inside the Zoom webinar presentation. So everyone joining today's live presentation is muted. If you do have a question throughout the presentation at any time, go ahead and click on the Q&A button in the Zoom meeting. William will be able to answer any questions via text, and if there's any questions left over, we can include those in the Q&A at the end of today's presentation. A couple more things about our webinar today. It is being recorded just like yesterday, and the recording will be made available on our support website within 24 hours. If you've registered for presentations yesterday and today, you will receive a notification when that becomes available on our support website. Those of you that are joining our live presentation will also receive a webinar survey at the end of our presentation today. We do appreciate any feedback you're able to offer us about our presenting style, as well as suggestions for any future topic, future webinars. So jumping into our topic and how-to steps for importing room revenue into the HOA portal. So I have a quick video here that's going to show this very first step of how to import room revenue. It's about 30 seconds in length, so it's going to be quite quick, but it'll show us the steps that you would follow as soon as you log in or after you've logged into the HOA portal. So you're going to go up to the revenue and occupancy section and select revenue import. From here, you can simply click the button import revenue. That will process, and now it will show you all the revenue that has been imported for each unit. So revenue shows up on the far right side, and on the left-hand side, you can click View to view the revenue that has been imported per day. It will also let you know, reference the guest name, so whatever guest stayed in that room for those dates. So that's the only step required in order to import revenue into the HOA portal. It is a required step, so whenever you start your monthly procedures, the very first step you need to take is to import that room revenue. Now, if there's ever a concern about the accuracy of that import, of that revenue that's being imported, you can compare it with a revenue by room report inside RoomKey. So you can find this report in the reporting section, in the audit subsection, and it's called OA reconciliation. A little bit of a hint there in the title, OA is referring to owner's accounting reconciliation. So this report will generate, it will actually generate for all rooms in the hotel. Or it will show revenue that is maybe not included for owned units. So in this case, I've sectioned this off and I'm only looking at those room numbers that are imported or units that are owned inside the HOA portal. I can compare the revenue values on this report in RoomKey to those that I've imported into the HOA portal. Now that we've imported the revenue, the next thing that we can do is actually manage that imported revenue. There's a couple different ways that we can manage revenue. We can either delete revenue or you can add revenue. So when you delete revenue, this is just removing any imported revenue. You can do this per unit, per day. We'll see exactly how to do that. And the same with adding revenue. So when you add revenue, this is room revenue specifically, you are manually adding per unit per day. So I've got a video here that is going to take us through those steps and show exactly how to do this inside the HOA portal. So we're going to start from this screen here showing us the imported revenue. You'll click View. And like I showed earlier, this is where you can see the revenue that was imported per day per unit. These ones did import some $0 revenue. So I'm just going through and clicking delete on the right-hand side to delete that revenue. Now on the left-hand side, you can restore all or portion of that deleted revenue. And at the top, you can click Edit. And this is the tool that is used to manually enter in revenue or add revenue. So I'm just doing that into the revenue column on the right-hand side. And you can also add in guest stay information at the top. So it looked like it did not pull through revenue from a stay on June 1st. And this is me just adding in that revenue manually, recording the guest name, res ID, the status in this case is a guest status, and I want to make sure I'm recording that room revenue. Once you're satisfied with all that, you click Save at the top. That will now show that summary again, and you can go back to the unit list, and you'll see that that has been updated for room 201. So a lot of elements are automated, like the import, but the HOA portal does allow you to independently manage that revenue, whether you need to delete it or add in extra revenue or extra guest stays that were not originally recorded. So once you've done that, another type of revenue function, specifically with room revenue, is optional, but many properties will do it, and it is the revenue pooling calculation. In yesterday's presentation, we talked about how revenue is distributed out to owners and that revenue distribution is managed by the hotel. And we had this graphic here where we've got each owner receives the revenue that was received throughout that month. In the initial example we looked at, the revenue that is generated by an owner's unit is remitted back to that individual owner. But our HOA portal can actually accommodate the pooling of this revenue, where instead of being distributed out to individual owners, the revenue is imported as a pool, just a lump sum here. It's all pooled together and then redistributed, even distribution, or it can be distributed based off of revenue factors. Those revenue and expense factors were something that we set up in yesterday's presentation. So this action of pooling the revenue together and then redistributing it can be automated in RoomKey as well. I've got a short video here, about 30 seconds, will show us how to enable that revenue pooling calculation. So again, we'll start from this area and up to the revenue and occupancy and select pooling calculation. You'll click the Pool Revenue button, and that will now pool the revenue together and redistribute it per unit. Again, you can still click on an individual unit, but what you'll notice is that you no longer have the ability to edit. So if you are a property that pools revenue first before distributing it to owners, it is important to note that any revenue that's been imported, you do need to review it, either add or delete the revenue first, because you will not be able to do that after you do the revenue pooling calculation. So now that we've seen how we can import revenue, we can manage it and pool it together if needed. We can now move on to seeing the different processes of posting expenses and payments. Now we're going to start with expenses and payments. It's the exact same process. The only difference when you're posting expenses and payments is how it's being posted, whether it is an individual posting or an expense to property. So an individual posting is an expense or payment that is posted to one or more selected units. So this could be a maintenance item for a single unit that is being posted to a single owner or one or two owners in that case. The expense to property is a little bit different. It allows you to post an expense, but distribute the cost of that expense across all units. And when you expense to property, we actually have to define an expense type. So we've got a couple different expense types that we're going to talk about as well. The first expense type is an expense or revenue factor, and this takes the amount and divides it based upon the expense factor setting on the unit. So expense factors are something that we set up in yesterday's presentation on the actual unit when we sold the unit or attached the owner to the unit. Just be mindful of the expense and revenue factor because that can be one of the ways that you distribute your expense to property. Another type of distribution is the ability to divide that price equally. So if you've got a charge for $1,000 and you want to evenly distribute it across all of the owners or all of the units, that is the option you'll select. We do also have the ability to post the same amount to all units. So if there's a fee that's being posted, instead of having to post that in individual postings one at a time for each unit, you can expense to property and select same amount as your expense type. We can also choose revenue as a factor. This one will allow you to calculate based on the revenue that is brought in by that unit for that given month. So instead of posting an amount, it will calculate based on a factor of that revenue. And then the last one I think is the most commonly used, and that's multi-unit expense posting. So when you have an expense, instead of entering the amount and then expensing it to property, you'll choose expense to property first, and then this multi-unit expense posting actually gives you a little worksheet where you can type in the price. If it's different for each unit, you can type in the price for that expense. Now, this is quite a lot of information, a lot of new definitions for some. So I'm going to show examples of all of these different types of postings in this video here. Now, this is a bit of a longer video, the longest that we'll be seeing today. So it's about 3 minutes and 30 seconds, but it's going to show a couple of examples of individual postings, and then it goes through several examples of how to expense to property. So once again, we'll start, this time we'll click on expenses and payments, and I'm going to click new expense. When you're starting a new expense, you can select the code. In this case, it's going to be a maintenance code. The reference is replacing the door, and the amount is $250. This is an individual posting directly to room 203. You can click Save and New, and that will allow you to now post another posting. This time I'm going to record a payment via EFT or electronic funds transfer, and it's going to be for the same amount for room 203. So she's paying off that expense that we posted for the replacing the door. The next expense, this one is a landscaping expense. And this time I'm going to expense to property. We'll enter in the amount for that landscaping. And when I expense to property, I'm going to select expense factor. So that's how I'm going to distribute that posting. The next one is an annual pest inspection. It is also an expense, and I will also add the amount, the total amount of $7. This will be expensed to the property, but I'm going to divide it equally amongst all the units. The next posting that I'm going to use is other revenue. This one is a balance forward equity, and the amount that I'm going to dispense across my units is $75, but I want to post the same amount to all units. Again, Save and New. The next example is going to be an expense again, but this time it is a maintenance expense where I'm installing railing for specific units. It will be expensed to the property, but this time I'm going to use multi-unit expense posting. So that's where I've got this worksheet here where I can type in manually the amount for each unit. And when I'm ready, I can click save, or in this case, I'll click save and close. That will show me all of those postings in that batch. I can click back to batch list, and that will now show me each batch that I just posted. So each one of those postings is its own batch. You can click view to see the individual charges that are posted across those units. This was a single posting, so when I look at that first example, it just shows one line item there. Now, with these expenses, you can delete a batch on the right-hand side, or you can view the individual or view the batch and delete an individual posting, again, on that right-hand side. I don't want to delete anything. I just wanted to demonstrate where you can find that delete option. So quite a bit of information there demonstrating all the different types of postings you can do. You can post expenses, which is the most common one, but you can also record payments, like was demonstrated as the second example there. You can be very creative and edit that, review those postings, delete and repost as needed, as much as you need throughout your posting cycle there. So that is a more manual version of postings. There are some types of expenses and postings that we can automate or automatically calculate. When we look at automatically calculating different commissions, we have two different types of commissions that you can calculate inside HOA. The first one is credit card commission. This is a fee that is levied whenever a credit card is used as a payment type. Those credit card processing fees are charged from the processor to the hotel. And if the hotel passes that expense off to the owner, that would be a credit card commission. It's usually based on a percentage, and we'll see in this presentation how you can actually define that percentage when you do the calculation. The other type of commission that you may be calculating on a monthly basis is travel agent commission. Again, when a guest stays on a booking that is made by a travel agent, at the end of the guest stay, the travel agent will issue an invoice for commission. If that commission expense is passed on from the hotel to the owners, we can actually use this tool to calculate the travel agent commission. We have two ways of calculating travel agent commission. You can do it automatically. So HOA will automatically look through RoomKey to see if any of the imported revenue is subject to commissions by travel agent. And then the other way that we can do it is manually. You can actually type in a manual commission rate. So I have a video here that's going to show calculating commissions. It'll start and show the credit card commission first, and then it'll look at the travel agent commission, both the automatic calculation and the manual calculation. Excellent. So at the top of the screen, this time you're going to go to the expenses and payments and select post credit card commissions. This is where you can customize what the credit card commission rate is. This is 0.0%. When you click calculate, that will now show distribution of all of the calculated credit card commission, and you do have the ability to delete at this point, or you can go back to the batch listing and see that listed as a single line item. And again, you can delete the whole batch as well. Again, that's an option there. The next example, we're going to use the post travel agent commission. And this is the automated posting that you can expect. But if there's no expenses selected, you'll notice that it will post a $0 batch. I'm going to go ahead and delete this batch and show you how to manually calculate travel agent commission using this commission worksheet. So this worksheet will show you a list of all of those units. Here we have one unit where it says that this was not a travel agent, but I'm going to change it to yes, travel agent, and I'll type in the travel agent commission. This is a 10% commission. So when I go back to my unit list and now select post travel agent commissions, this is going to do that calculation again, but this time it's actually going to pull through that travel agent commission that I manually entered onto the unit. So that can be updated and managed manually if the automated calculation is not coming through correctly, or if there's some sort of discrepancy. You do have the ability to use that commission worksheet to edit and update the system so that when you do the travel agent commission calculation, it will accurately pull through that commission rate. So now that we've seen how to post expenses and payments and do those automated calculations, the last step that we have is to calculate the statements. Now, when you calculate statements, this is going to take everything that we imported, all the revenue that we imported and pooled, the expenses that we posted and payments, of course, and it's going to calculate the statements altogether. Now, there's a couple of things that will automatically post whenever you calculate statement, and you'll have the option to select these or not. So the three items that automate when you calculate statements are the management fees, the reoccurring fees, and the occupancy fees. Management fees are the hotel's portion of the room revenue. So if the hotel charges maybe 50% of the revenue is for hotel management fees, a very common calculation there, that will be applied at this stage when we calculate statements. Reoccurring fees, these are the operating costs incurred by the hotel that are passed to the owners. This is often like a reoccurring maintenance fee. We may set these up, I believe yesterday we set them up as a percentage of the revenue. So as a 0.2% of the revenue is calculated as a maintenance fee that is reoccurring. So every month that happens. And then lastly, we have occupancy fees. These fees are only applicable when the owner's unit is occupied. And we set up these different fees, management, reoccurring, and occupancy fees when you attach the owner to the unit. So I do have a video that's going to show this process. It's quite quick because all of these fees have been set up in advance. So it is just a matter of running the calculation in the HOA platform. So here my video is going to show on screen. We have those transactions, and now we're going over to the statement section and select calculate statements. You'll see all three of those fees are selected. And when I click calculate statement and confirm yes, it is now going to run those calculations and show me the result for each unit. You can click view to view the revenue, collected taxes, and expense on the statement. If you go back to the statement list, if there's any owners that owe money, you can view that information, and that will show at the bottom as well that the owner actually owes money back to the hotel. That appears as a negative balance on this report. Once we've calculated the statements, if you have an owner's portal wherein you allow owners to log in and view their owner's statement electronically, after you calculate the statements, you can actually enable owner viewing. So this is the process that allows owners to actually view their statement electronically through that owner's portal. This is a quick 30 seconds. So let's take a look at what this process looks like. Perfect. So once you view the statements, you'll come back up to the statements section, and this time select Enable Owner Viewing. This will give you a preview of the message that will be sent out to owners. You can edit any details if needed, and if you only wanted to send it to select owners, you can choose that as well, or you can keep this as sent to all owners when you click Send. HOA will simply confirm when that has been sent successfully, and the owners will receive that notification via email. It simply lets them know that the statement is available for viewing. So then what they can do is actually go to their owner's portal. There we go. A little recap from yesterday. Depending on which portal your owners use, they will select the link or navigate to that link, log in using their email address and password, and they'll be able to see that statement that has been enabled for their viewing. So if you'd like to learn a little more about the portal, we do have that. We did go over some of that information, how to register, how to log in yesterday's presentation. So definitely take a look there if you'd like to enable owner viewing for your unit owners. So moving on to the next item that we'll be looking at, we've seen now that the owners will have the ability to review their statement information. They'll have the ability to print from that portal as well. The last thing I wanted to make sure we looked at for today's presentation is the ability to sell a unit. So this may happen from time to time where owners sell their unit to a different owner, and that information has to be updated inside the owner's portal. So if it is a new owner, you will have to follow the steps we looked at yesterday in order to create a new owner profile and set that up in the HOA portal. But once you have that set up, then you can actually sell the unit. So this video is about a minute in length. It's going to show that process of selling a unit to a new owner. I'll let you know in this video, the profile is already created for the new owner. It's just a matter of selling it. So this time we're going to go to configuration settings and go to the units section. This is going to show a list of all of the units in our HOA, and I'm going to click view on unit 301. I can see it has an owner, but I'm going to click sell unit. This is where I can select the new owner profile or name. This is going to be Fred Jones as the new owner. You'll enter in the start date, so when Fred Jones takes ownership of that unit, and you'll click Save. Again, when you're attaching or selling a unit, don't forget to add in the management fees at this step as well. So I'm just calculating that and adding that to that unit. When you go back to the unit, you'll see your new owner listed in the owners section. And at the bottom of the screen, it will also list any previous owners of that unit. Previous owners are for reference only. They do not, you're not able to change any information for that previous owner. It's just available there for reference. So now that I've sold the unit to a new owner, the next time I import revenue and do all of these monthly procedures, that revenue or that unit's revenue will be going to that new owner instead of the old owner. And that is it for the new how-to items for today's presentation. You can start using these tools. If you are already have signed up with HOA, these tools are available to you right away. If you are interested in setting up an HOA portal, an owner's portal for your hotel, you can reach out to our inside sales manager, Margot. Her contact information is listed here, and I'll include it in my follow-up email as well. She'll be really helpful to recommend setting up HOA, and she will also encourage you to take some training with our implementation specialists here at RoomKey, just to ensure you're comfortable with the HOA setup and those monthly procedures we've looked at over the last couple of minutes here. So to summarize for our two-day presentation, let's go ahead and open up the floor to see if we have any questions coming in. Okay. So it looks like we don't have any questions remaining for today's presentation. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the webinar. I will make this webinar available within 24 hours, so you'll get a notification, as mentioned, when that becomes available on our support website. But thank you everyone for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.